All right, Monday Expert Interview. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Dave Cooper Live, where we feature the people, the products, and the process enabling us all to build it better. In this complex and fragmented industry of ours, one thing rings true. There is no magic wand, no crystal ball, no way of really predicting the future. But guess what? If you want to know where you're going, you may just want to know where you have been. So, when you think about gurus, historians, those driven by seeking information and sharing information so we can all grow together, look no further, because today we welcome Gary Fleischer, aka the Mod Coach, and recently appointed editor-in-chief of iMedia's newly launched magazine, Offsite Construction. And he is ready to share with all of us today. 3 things you must know about off-site construction. If you are a developer, builder, architect, general contractor, engineer interested or engaged in industrialized construction, this is your chance to ask the go-to resource on all that's happening in off-site construction. We are able to deliver all of this information to you only because of our awesome sponsors. So a big shout out and thank you to Carson Holmquist and the team at Stream Logistics. They are experts in high stakes freight, and they are the perfect choice for projects with timelines and a specific delivery sequence, shipments with high complexity and unique constraints. The new methods of construction need new transportation solutions, and they are up for the challenge. Please reach out to Stream Logistics at streamlogistics.com and tell them that Dave Cooper says hello, and tell Carson Holmquist he is killing it out there. I love what they're doing. You need to check them out. And also a big thank you to CombiLift. CombiLift's the largest global manufacturer of multi-directional forklifts and straddle carriers, an acknowledged leader in long load handling solutions, offering a free warehouse and site optimization design services. They have more than 50,000 CombiLifts units have been sold in over 85 countries since CombiLifts was established in 1998. 50,000. CombiLift is dedicated to helping companies of all sizes and from every industry to maximize the capacity, safety, and efficiency of their warehouse and storage facilities. Thank you to Paul Short and the team at CombiLift for helping us all to build it better. Learn more by visiting their website at www.combilift.com. All right, without further ado, let's bring in the guru, the modular expert, the man, the myth, the legend, Gary Fleischer. Gary, how are you, my friend?
Terrific. Feeling great.
Man, you know what? I could go on and on and on and on and on about how much I admire all the things that you have been doing and all the things you have accomplished, especially over the last 5-10 years. I mean, it's amazing what has happened in this industry. Why don't you just, for everybody out there that may not know Gary Fleischer, the Mod Coach, why don't you just give them your background real quick?
It's really pretty simple. I owned a chain of convenience stores, sold those. Became a realtor, very successful there. And then we had a housing crash. And then I became a builder, did that for 13 years. And after that, I went to work for Champion Homes in their new Genesis line.
Yeah.
And then went with a couple other factories and retired. So you could pretty much say that almost my entire life, with the exception of selling bread, milk, and cigarettes in the early years, I've been around construction. Oh, and
that's right. You were in the convenience business. You want to talk about cutting your teeth in an industry that you really have to be quick and smart on your feet. It would be definitely the convenience store, gas station, neck of the woods. But listen, that retired stuff's crap. You're not retired. You're putting out like 4 or 5 blog posts a day, Gary. There's not anybody in the world, I think, that can keep up with you.
And I have no help.
I know. Well, listen, but that's okay. I mean, you're doing it. So, Gary, let's get into today's conversation. Let's talk about, there's 3 things you must know about offsite construction. And I think, when we talk about offsite construction, we talk about the state of the industry, and we talk about what's happening with the homeless crisis, and the needs that are out there. How are you seeing everything take place right now? Are you seeing anybody address this? What are your thoughts on it?
As to the homeless you're talking about?
Yeah, sure. To the homeless.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people talking about doing things for the homeless, but what has been accomplished so far is a lot less than we are able to do. I mean, if you look at what's happening, there are cities out there that think they're doing a wonderful job and they're buying garden sheds and putting them up, and they think they're housing the homeless in a wonderful way. But I'm sorry, I don't know if I could live in a garden shed. The other one, recently, the plastic ones that are there for the emergency, they're finding them. The homeless are not the most careful people when it comes to taking care of things, only because it's just it's a
Yeah.
tough situation to be in. And these plastic ones, when they start catching fire, they don't burn, they melt. And we've had two fires now with the plastic ones. And then they bring in tiny homes. Some cities are doing tiny homes, and I look at them and I'm thinking, well, this isn't what we should be doing. We have the ability, our industry has the ability to build proper housing. We can give them uh, good electrical service. We can give them smoke alarms. We can give them wonderful insulated places. Uh, I just read not too long ago that Wisconsin built a little village. I mean, this is state sponsored. They built a little village of garden sheds, didn't insulate it. Wisconsin, winter.
It's cold in Wisconsin, right? I mean, it's pretty
Yes.
sunny and warm where I'm at right now.
Well, I'll tell you what. I don't know how true it is because I got this secondhand, but I heard they had to take those people to a homeless shelter, a warm shelter in the winter. So we can do better. And part of the reason that we're not is because all the factories that I know of are slammed with work. So there's the biggest thing we have going against us right now in the offsite industry is capacity. We're slim on capacity for several reasons. The biggest one is labor. The second one is material. And now the third one sneaking in is inflation. So we could do better, but there's a lot of things pushing against that in the other end.
Right. So Gary, why is so many things always pushing against us? Is it that we can't get out of our own way? I understand capacity, but right, if there's enough business, wouldn't we be opening more factories if you were a factory? If there's that much business? Or is it the old tried and true, we stay at capacity, and when the market drops, we want to be in a position to be able to shut down and wait it out?
Yeah, sort of. It's a little bit of everything there, Dave. You're absolutely right. If you have a factory and you've invested, let's give you two factories. Let's say you have an old line factory that has no automation, very few things in it that can be automated, and you're at capacity. And what is the reason you would want to open another factory if you can't get enough help in the factory that you already have? If you have a factory that's working 4 10-hour days, what is and that's all you can work because that's all the labor you can get. Why build another $10 million factory when all you had to do is have enough people in your original factory to run a second shift? So it's not just what are we going to do with the factory if the bottom drops out of the market. There's a multiple amount of things in here, and there are factories out there totally automated up to the point where all the walls come together, and you don't build those for $10 million. You build them for $50 to $100 million. How many of those do you want to start up?
Yeah. Well, do you find though, Gary, with the factories? I mean, there's some plug and play solutions, right? We can increase and optimize a manufacturing facility without pouring, $100 million into
Oh, yeah.
like an auto vol, which they're working. They have their own supply chain of information or buildings that are coming through there, but are you seeing any of the factories adopt new technology to help optimize what they currently already have without stopping their production line to implement it?
There was a speaker a few years ago at, I think it was BSC, that is very knowledgeable about automation in the factory. And he drew a crowd for his presentation. And during his presentation, he says, you don't want to automate your wall assemblies or anything else unless you're willing to build an additional 20,000 square feet on the end of your factory, because that's what all these automated tables and everything will take. And the consensus was, well, we hardly have enough room to store our modules in the yard. Now you're going to take 20,000 more feet. It's not that the factories weren't anxious to have automated tables. It's just there's so many things going differently.
Yeah.
So, it's like when you have a college reunion and all the guys that have been out of college for 30 years around, they're talking about what they've accomplished, but hardly anybody talks about, well, I'm going to bag all that. I'm going to start something new.
Right.
So,
well,
that's our industry.
Yeah, but one of the things, you and I both in the building world, right? We both have hundreds and thousands or whatever builds under our belt, being in the factory, being in the field, and we all know when something comes to the field, we end up with another punch list of thousands and thousands of dollars that wasn't done right at the factory because we're still using 1998 AutoCAD systems and stuff. I mean, I do think that the factories can update how they design and build and actually start using BIM or digital twins or some way of actually doing it to where we have less change orders, which also speeds up production and helps them with their labor because they're not having to have a full field crew out there all the time fixing stuff.
Well, there's two things there. One, we would have a lot less repairs in the field if we built similar units, one after the other. It becomes repetitive. And you can spot a problem immediately on the production line. But that's not our entire industry. We have a lot of custom home manufacturers, more in the East than there is in the West. And it is tough for a production line worker to say, well, this one gets this treatment, this one that gets more than a few years ago, Stefan Limbach toured the Excel factory. I think I've told you this story.
Yes, you did.
But I'll say it again because it's a cool one. Stefan Limbach has a phenomenal factory in Sweden. I mean, it's unbelievable. But he produces projects that many of the modules are identical. Well, when he toured the Excel factory in Pennsylvania, about 3/4 of the way through, he stopped and looked and he started shaking his head and saying, no, no. And I said, why? What's wrong? He said, why are you building everyone different? And the head of the engineering department was with us. And he said, he says, we don't build any two houses the same. Besides, that one goes to Vermont, where we have to contend with a snow load. That one goes to New York, where we have to contend with earthquake. And that one goes to New Jersey, where we have to worry about water and high wind. And he says, everyone's built differently. Well, if you're a production line worker and you're given these things one after the other, and each of them's different. I'm sorry, but you really got to be on top of your game every day to keep them straight. So part of the problem is that we don't build consistent modules or identical modules down the line, but that's also a hindrance on the custom side. So,
yeah, well, you know what it is. And then I got one other question on this. I know I've seen it. I want your opinion. There are some manufacturers coming out there using, parametric design and some other, ways of building to where we can get fairly highly customizable, not 100% like you see in New England and some of these other areas. But I mean, the options and the ideas that some of these manufacturers are coming up with today, you would think that there is something for everybody at this point.
Oh yeah, and the ideas and innovation are coming faster than we can even handle them. The younger people are bringing with them from college in their education systems that we wouldn't even have dreamed about just a few years ago, and they're going to make a world of difference as long as we can afford it.
Yeah, I agree with you. The young minds coming into this. I see Mateo and his brother out there. We have a lot of, young, smart people really starting to enter our business, but they're not coming in with an older mentality. They're looking at it through new lenses and their eyes, and I think that's very valuable. So in the industry, Gary, is change possible? Are we going to see a change in the people that have been in this industry for a long time? And are we going to see change with the newcomers coming in? What are you seeing?
Change is inevitable. It just depends on whether you're going to embrace it or defy it. And I think that really goes down to the factory management. If you went to an old line East Coast factory and said, okay, we're going to start on BIM and all these other things, you may not get the reception you want. If you go to the West Coast and ask that same question, you're going to get, oh yeah, we'll embrace change. We love change out here. But again, it all depends on management's mentality. The one that owns the factory calls the shots. And if that factory is and I love this subject, because if a factory is making money, which is what they're there for, I enjoy these people that say, well, you shouldn't make so much money. Why not? I mean, you just do. But if your factory is making money, it's 50 years old, you haven't done anything to the building, you haven't bought any new cranes, and you're just making money hands over fist, why in the world would you want to do anything? But if you're a brand new factory, you have to do things. You have to make the changes. You have to embrace what's going on. Now, what happens 10 years from now? Are the ones that have embraced change going to be the rulers, and the ones that didn't embrace change be the ones falling by the wayside? I don't know. But right now, the owners control what's going on. And as long as they're making money.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you know what? I agree with you, Gary. Listen, change is inevitable. And if people don't keep up with change, then, this younger generation, the millennials, the people that are starting to buy the homes these days, they expect a certain level of technology, a certain level of energy efficiency, a certain level of sustainability. That change is coming. And I think the factories, all of them are going to have to keep up with it at some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, and I think what will happen is just like me. By the time that change comes, these factory managers are going to be ready to retire or past ready to retire. And they're going to hand it off to their children or to a younger group. And the younger group will either make it or break it.
That's right. That's right. So listen, if you're just tuning in, we are live on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and Twitter. So get your tweets on. You better be out there. Go tweet the Mod Coach as soon as we're done here. Don't leave the channel yet. You can go afterwards. Gary likes to be tweeted. It'll be fun to do. And also, if you're not subscribed to our YouTube channel, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's where you get all this information. And if you're out there watching this, what do you think the solution is to the homeless crisis out there? What do you think is going to happen? And I also want to know, do you think offsite construction is here to stay? Are we growing, or are we just busy? Are we growing? That is the question. And how do we make a dent in a 5 million home deficit that we have across this country? Maybe more, maybe less, but that's a lot of houses to make up. All right, Gary, let's get into the next topic here. New materials and processes advancing construction. Tell me what your favorite new material is right now. What do you love?
Just about anything with hemp.
Right? Yeah.
I mean, I don't understand hemp.
Do you smoke it?
I don't understand hemp.
You can't. Well, you can't smoke hemp. That's my favorite thing. I love it. Yeah.
But no, I mean, hemp is a coming thing. It's going to take a lot of investment money to make it happen. It's going to take a lot of people accepting it. I mean, I still don't understand how they make rebar stronger than steel rebar. I haven't figured this out yet. So the new processes that are coming in, if it involves the computer, I'm completely lost. I really am. I have no idea what's going on with the computer. I just had to call somebody to tell me how to increase the storage on my computer. So I mean, that's ridiculous.
Well, you have everybody fooled if that's the case, because you're hot on social media and you live on a computer. But I agree with you, Gary. I think hemp. We look at the hemp flooring, the hemp insulation. They're making hemp electrical boxes now, I heard. I think it's coming fast, and I also believe that with the market and the lumber surcharges and the way things have gone, it has completely opened the doors for new products to get their foot in, period, because it's too expensive the way we're doing it right now. Thoughts?
Yeah, and you talk about lumber prices. I don't know about how any other industry works, but once a factory gets a price up on a house, it's very seldom that any factory backs down. This is the new price now. So do the factories continue pumping out houses, making more money because the materials shortage has dried up, only because the realtors can get more money for the houses that are already existing? And if that's the case, how can we build affordable housing and attainable housing?
Right.
I mean, it's just ridiculous.
So that's a great question for the audience. If we got some factory owners out there, lumber prices went up 300%. Your prices probably went up 300%, which they should. You got to make money and cover your costs and pass that on. But what if lumber prices drop back down? Are you going to drop your lumber prices to be with the market? I bet somebody does to beat the competition and maybe force everybody else to. But I want to know your thoughts out there. That's very true, Gary. Over my 20 plus years, I've never seen the houses, the modular home costs go the opposite direction.
Oh yeah, and there is not one factory out there that will lower their price only because of capacity. Their capacity is out a year and a half, and lumber price, like you say, lumber prices go back to their original price, and yeah, they can't afford to lower the price. If they lower the price, they're going to make the same amount of profit, but they're not going to pick up any new business.
No, they're definitely not. Let's talk about technology. So we talked about new material. Let's talk about processes, technology. What do you see as the biggest advancement that manufacturers can utilize now to get to the next level?
Well, you're absolutely talking to the wrong person on technology.
Well, so we get back into BIM, digital twins, is parametric. Are you seeing anybody adopt that from your end?
I wish I could say yes, but I don't see it. And I've told this story before too, and I'm sure you've heard it. a factory instituted a BIM program. By the time they got it to the point they could actually start using it, the programmer quit to take a new job. Well, they hired another programmer thinking, oh, well, this just continues on. Well, the new programmer said, what that guy did was junk. He says, he programmed this all wrong. I'm going to have to reprogram it for you. Well, before he was finished, he quit to take another job as a BIM programmer for another company. And now here's a factory that has paid two different people to write two different programs to integrate BIM into their system. And they said, do we make that decision to go with a third one, or do we just scrap it?
Right.
And it's a tough world out there. And I'll tell you, being an offsite factory is not for the faint of heart anymore.
It's definitely not for the faint of heart anymore. And I have to tell you, it's it's cyclical with the ups and downs. But I think as offsite becomes more prevalent and no longer, it's a modular, it's just the way we build. As that starts happening, hopefully we'll see some of that ebb and flow that they've experienced over all these years kind of wane away more as we pick up more of the lion's share of the market. Hopefully that is the case.
Well, and you're absolutely right, Dave. But also look at the on-site construction. The days of being able to afford to send 60 tractor trailers to a site loaded with lumber, have it unloaded and sitting there at the job site, and then not having enough people to even work at the job site. Those days they're not coming, they're here. And
they are.
Offsite is the only logical way to go. When you think offsite, you go back 100 years, and that's not long. Go back 100 years, they were still building windows on site. They were still building cabinetry on site. Today, it doesn't happen. That's all offsite.
Right.
I know of one factory that builds their kitchens and their bathrooms in pods and then integrates, that's in another area, and then they integrate them into the line already with everything wired in and everything. They slip it into the line and connect it in and then ship it on down. And it's pretty darn amazing. So those are the kind of things that are going to come with the innovation. But offsite has to be the way to go. I mean, there's no other. I've been around long enough to know that you have to. Whoever's not investing in offsite construction, they're going to be lost here pretty soon.
Yeah, I agree with that. It is coming. It is the way of the future. All right, Gary, why don't we say hello to a few people in the audience? I think you had a couple comments or questions you wanted to maybe talk about as well, and we'll get to that. But let's say hi to a couple people real quick. There you go. There's the young bucks from Louisiana, Mateo Atwee from Boxley. Hello, Dave Cooper, Gary Fleischer, the mod coach, and Jennifer, who is in the background over here. Mateo with Boxley, U.S. Frame Factory, tuning in from Atlanta. I know he spends a lot of time in Atlanta, that guy. All right, we got Paul Barretto out there as well. Greetings from Maryland. Looking forward to today's discussion. Good to see you, Paul. Thank you for tuning in today. We got the George Ryman in the house. Good morning from Phoenix, Arizona. Love it. Bill Schofield's with us from Dearborn, Michigan. Good to see you. Paul says, Gary, what can we do as an industry to be less fragmented? The current housing market is perfect for modular construction to shine. Oh, Gary. I mean, let's talk about fragmentation. Look at next week. We have two industry events happening at the same time.
Yeah, it's funny. It's
not funny. It's horrible.
Oh, no, it isn't. I mean, it's horrible that two of them are happening, overlapping. But
right.
It's wonderful that there's so many of these conferences focusing on innovation, technology, and offsite all at the same time. One of my favorite, I love telling stories because they're stories. I love them. Uh, I've probably been through almost 100 factories, and I usually get the tour by the GM or the owner. And as we're walking through the factories, they all say to me, now listen, you can't write about this. This is proprietary to us. We're the only ones using it. And you don't know how much I want to say to them, no, it's not. Everybody does it this way. It's
Yep.
because we're so darn fragmented. We don't talk to each other. We don't help each other grow. But that's the name of the game.
All right. But when we get them in, you and I have done conferences over the years, and it's amazing when we get these factory owners together, how the floodgates open up and the collaboration and the conversations start happening, right? I mean, even from our last meeting that we got factory owners that are meeting on a weekly basis through Zoom to discuss process and optimization, because you're absolutely right. If they had the secret widget, Gary, we wouldn't be in the housing issue that we're having, right? Why aren't they further along than everybody else is what I always say. I understand there's IP out there, but I'm with you. I hear that all too often, that I have, this is secret information, proprietary, don't share it. But hey, unless you're like an Autovol and you're one of the first fully automated factories out there that spent millions to put it there, I agree with you. More times than not, they're just calling it a different name. Their widget's the same.
Oh yeah, and the sad part of it is they don't know that everybody does it that way. And I've tried to show processes and take videos inside factories, and sometimes it helps, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah. Hey, Greg Ugaldi. There you go. There's a name. Immediate past chairman of the NAHB. Good to see you, Greg. I hope all is well in your world. Greg is coming on the show in a couple weeks, everybody. He's going to give us an update on what is happening all the way from the top. So, Greg, we look forward to having you on. We got Gilbert Meyer out there. He says, we need new building technologies which allow mass production of components. We are working on a system which enables to produce 1,000 square foot house in 5 hours. Using interlocking systems, right? You get into these systems that don't use tools, Gary, and that does speed it up for sure. And I do think automation will speed it up when it comes to more of a factory, produced home versus one-off customs.
There's one other thing there too, and he brought it up. The fact that the millennials are a different breed than their parents. Their parents, probably Vietnam era, they wanted their house the way they wanted their house. They wanted it to look different than the next door neighbors. The millennials are just happy to have a house. And not all millennials, don't get me wrong, but the industry itself, the track builders have taught millennials that 500 townhouses in a community is quite normal. I'm sorry, there are 2 developments going into my town. Now, my town is 29,000 people. There's 2 developments going. One 900 homes, and the other one's 360. There's no labor. The labor in our county is so low, we either have to truck them in from outside the county, or we have to tell them, you got to quit that job and come over here and work part-time and then work at this one part-time. It's just horrible. So I don't know where they're going to get labor to build over 1,200 homes. It would pay them to build these 2 communities to go together and build a factory.
Yeah, no, I agree. That is the labor side, but this is where the fun side comes in. Technology, automation, better ways of doing things. I think that's where hopefully we're going to gain some of these folks back as well. I got a question for you up here, Gary. We got about 5 minutes left.
Okay.
Let's just make sure we're not going to be able to get to everybody here. They're just pouring in. Somebody actually followed the rules. I saw a queue. Oh, it was Mateo. Gary, in your opinion, is the future of modular and productization or modular construction services in standardized frameworks?
You're going to see standardization in the modular industry. The holdouts on the custom side, they're going to be there for a long time. But boy, I'll tell you what, it's going to be standardization. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts. And the track builders have taught people to accept standardization. I mean, like I said, a development of 500 townhouses, none of them are different.
Right.
I
That's
mean,
right.
I wouldn't want to be coming home on New Year's Eve and trying to find my house in a 500 house townhouse development.
Especially after you smoke some of that hemp. You never know what's going to happen.
And, I mean, it's just unbelievable.
Todd Williams says the answer to affordability and homeless problem is Boxable. Well, let me tell you something. I do love Boxable. I love what they've done. We have Wednesday A-Fold coming on, which is another unfoldable home in Italy. We'll be live from Italy, Gary, not only in the factory, but we have a homeowner that's going to share virtually what her home looks like from a different part of this world, which is going to be great. So I agree. I think Boxable has its place. I don't know if it's the 100% the solution, but it definitely has a place in what they're doing. And their product is spectacular. It's very well built.
Now I have a question for you, Dave.
Oh, no.
Yes.
Oh, we're out of time, everybody. We got, what do you got?
All right. The differences in the way factories approach innovation, can you compare the East Coast to the West Coast to Europe?
Well, yeah, I don't know if there's a whole lot of comparison to the Europe side, but I would say to simplify that, I think the West Coast is more closely in line with where the Europeans have been for years. They're starting to catch up on the West Coast. I think there are some great East Coast factories that are coming online. Some are still in stealth mode that are bringing in automation and using better grade lumber. But, you know, when we look at East Coast factories, we're still thinking of the, you know, there's still more of the old sawmill indoor. You're just framing indoors, not a whole lot of process involved outside. And I say that lightly. There's a lot of process, but not a lot of progress in the technology and the process that's moving forward, such as in Europe, right? So, you know, East Coast, you know, they're busy. They do a lot more custom homes than the West Coast, right? And the Midwest. They're doing a lot more production homes out of their facilities or hybrid homes. Europe, overall, they don't do as many one-offs like we do. So their process can be a little more streamlined and a little more optimized. The difference between Europe and East Coast, you can eat off of European modulars floors. The West Coast, you're going to have to dig through some sawdust to find whatever you dropped. That's kind of the difference in that aspect. But I do believe, Gary, that the West Coast is very quickly taking the reins and moving forward when it comes to using better building products, putting sustainability into what they do, using more technology. And when I say technology, I'm not talking robots. They're starting off with BIM and lasers. That's all you need to increase your productivity and use a less skilled labor. You can frame walls just like they do on the jigs at truss plants. You can lay out sheetrock just like you do with the jigs at a truss plant and lasers. So to me, I see the West Coast starting to really take the lead when it comes to advancements in our modular factories, more so than the East Coast. Minus, there's some exceptions.
Yeah, and I agree. It is two different worlds, and I think the biggest reason is the East Coast is is the origin of my phone went nuts. Is the origin really of modular, and some of the factories that started when it began are still running. So that's a big difference. Real quick, I want to just say one thing. About 2 weeks ago, I met with a young man. He's been building and doing remodeling. He's been building small additions and remodeling for about 4 or 5 years now, and he wanted to become a home builder. And he was so discouraged. He said that he went to 6 factories. 6. Not one of them would talk to him about getting into modular. Not one. I said, well, why not? He says, well, he said, they're all saying they're a year to 12 or 18 months out. And there's no reason to talk to them because by the time that you get a house under contract and that, it'll be 2 years till you see your house. And so they discouraged him from even being in it. So then he said he thought, well, maybe I'll get panelized walls. The last panelized wall builder in his area just sold to one of the tract companies. He said you cannot buy panelized wall in his area within 50 miles in any direction of his area. And I said, what are you going to do? He said, I have no idea. He said, I want to build houses. But he says, there's nothing to build. And he says, without either a modular or a panelized plant behind me, he says, I could stick build, but he said, that is such a risk today for starting out. So there's part of the problem that you're having out there. You have people that want to start building houses and there's just nothing available for them to even get started with.
I agree with you, and just it's kind of the state of the market. The good news is, Gary, there are manufacturing facilities popping up all across the country right now. Hopefully that continues. Hopefully the market continues. Gary, I appreciate you coming on the show today.
You're quite welcome. I've enjoyed this. I hope we've stirred up a little bit.
Well, I did hope we stirred it up a little bit. You know, if nobody's asking questions or pointing out the obvious, then we're not going to get anywhere. And you know, we're advocates in the industry. We don't want to see anybody fail. You know, like I want to see everybody succeed. And as long as you and I can be out there showcasing the new information, showing who's new, what's happening out there, and then sharing our experience. You and I both have been to hundreds of factories, and we'll continue to do so. I really think you can make a difference in the world, and I hope that we're bringing information to people that makes a difference as well. But I know you definitely do. So I appreciate you, Gary.
No problem. Enjoyed it.
All right. Yeah, perfect. Stay right there, Gary. I'll come back to you in just a moment. All right, everybody, listen, that is a wrap today. Make sure you put in your calendars for Wednesday. That's right, A-Fold Homes is going to be on. Foldable wooden modular homes. That's right, foldable. Flat pack, can be shipped across the world any way you like to do it. Going to be live on this show. Boxable was a big hit. I think this is a pretty staunch competitor on the wood market side coming out, so you do not want to miss it. And then on BS Friday, we're going to be talking about mechanicals. That's right, all about mechanicals, and not the way you think we usually talk about mechanicals. This time, it's going to be much better, more fun. We're going to have a great conversation with Mark Barenaked Willie. All right, everybody, listen, have a wonderful day. I am getting back on that highway over there, and we will see you Wednesday with A-Fold, 1 p.m. Eastern. Bye now.